Hello. I wanted to say that I've been doing a lot of traveling for work lately, and as happy as I am to have an audience, I'm so sorry to make you all wait. If YouTube paid the bills, I'd definitely be able to quit my I'd definitely be able to make videos a bit quicker. I want to make good content without hassling my viewers. So if you want to support me in my work, join my Patreon, pledge my Kickstarter, contribute to my GoFundMe. I've got Amazon links in the description to the tools that I use each episode, but honestly, they work just the same if you buy them from your local electronics or hardware store. As you saw in the last episode, the printed circuit board was deteriorating under a much lower heat than it took to heat up the solder. When trying to solder the wires to the copper pads that did stick, the PCB would heat up, disintegrate, and the entire pad would come back up. With stagnating progress and work becoming more demanding, I was still pondering how to get it to work. That's when I decided to cut my losses and try the backup method: swapping ROM chips. As you can see here, we needed to get an identical PCB to fully port the chip. After searching the index that we used earlier, it seemed that Gauntlet 2 seemed to be a winner. This was exciting because I had just found a copy in a box of possibly useful junk. A quick check inside shows that they are a match, but it also shows something a little bit more troubling. You can see the beating that this little guy took. If this doesn't work, it might be the end of the road for this cart's restoration process, but not the end of the journey. For this part of the project, we'll only need 2 additional tools, in addition to the other tools we already have. Hey. The process of exchanging ROM chips between Game Boy cartridges is actually pretty straightforward. All we do is desolder each of the ROM chips and then place the unidentified ROM chip onto the Gauntlet 2 board and solder in place. Because the PCBs are identical, there shouldn't be any compatibility issues between the 2 ROM chips. As you can see here, sometimes chips require a little bit more heat before the pins are willing to release from the board. In order to get these pins off, we have to get the solder underneath the pins that we can't reach with the soldering iron to heat up to the melting point and then release. In order to get the same effect as a hot air gun, we're going to need to remove as much solder as we can from the board and then use the soldering iron to heat each pin individually until it separates. While this method requires a steady hand and a little bit more patience, the satisfaction of getting it done is just about the same, and it won't require an additional hardware purchase for most tinkerers. Well, it looks like we have success, but I might have bent a couple pins in the process. Let's just straighten those up with a metal ruler. Alright, now we'll do the same thing with Gauntlet 2. At this point, the only thing preventing this from working is whether or not the original ROM chip was damaged beyond repair. While I've gotten some great use out of my hot air station so far, I wanted to make this repair using just the soldering iron to make it a little bit easier to replicate at home. Now that both of the chips are off, we can take the unidentified ROM chip, identify pin 1, orient the chip, and solder it in place. When placing the ROM chip onto the new PCB, make sure that you align pin 1 with the triangle on the PCB. On this chip, pin 1 is identified by a dot. Place the dot in the bottom left corner, and pin 1 will be the leftmost pin on the bottom row. And now for the test run. Will it work? Well, it wasn't the end that we wanted, but it was quite a journey. I'd like to extend a very large thank you to Mr. Durka for making this possible. Now it's time to pack this all up and send it back across the pond. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. That was going to be the original end of the video. I wasn't happy about it, so I decided to go back and make sure that I didn't rush through the soldering job. As you noticed, I didn't actually add any new solder to the chip when I attached it to the Gauntlet 2 PCB. There seemed to be enough solder on the board, so I thought I was safe. Well, that wasn't the case. When I tested whether or not the connections were solid from the chip to the board, I found a couple of discrepancies, so I decided to go back and hit it with a little bit more solder. If it didn't work this time, I think it was going to be time to give up. There we have it, it worked. Now we just swap the covers with the USA cartridge and we've got a fully functioning cartridge for Mr. Durka to enjoy. Again, I'd like to extend a very big thank you to Mr. Durka for making this all possible. Be sure to tune in next episode when we make a thing tracker. Also tune in next episode to find out how you can win a sealed Tamagotchi. That's all for now, folks. Thanks for watching.